Well, hi there, and welcome back to Tackett's House of Clutter. I mean, horsepower. Um, as you can see, the 283 is back together. You probably didn't even know that it was apart, but I had to. If you saw the last video, the engine startup video, it had a pretty bad oil leak, and it turned out it was from a little plug at the back of the block that's kind of sort of halfway underneath the cylinder head. So you had to remove the intake manifold and one cylinder head in order to get to the plug. And I replaced it, checked it with my drill, made sure it wasn't leaking anymore, and went ahead and put the head back on, the intake manifold back on, dropped the distributor back in. I fired it up last night, no oil leaks, reset the timing. Uh, it looked good, it sounded good. I'm happy with it now. So, with that being said, it's time to put the engine into Okie. So, what we got to do today is we're going to go ahead and open this place up, move the Chevelle out, move the motorcycles out. Okie's out here, so we'll push Okie up in here, kind of halfway at an angle, and then I got to remove the old engine, and then go ahead and put the new engine in. We're gonna do that today, all of it. So I got a lot of work to do. It's gonna suck a little bit because I got a pretty bad sunburn on my back and shoulders from weed whacking the backyard. And so laying on the garage floor is gonna suck a little bit today. But hey, it has to get done. And I took time off work to get caught up, so I gotta do this. So that's where we're at. So let's get started. One down. Oh, I wasn't kidding about that sunburn either, man. My back is tore up. Okay. Okay, here we go. New engine, ready to go. Old engine needs to come out. So most of it has been disconnected already because remember I had to steal a lot of parts off it: fuel pump, fuel line, carburetor, distributor. I had to steal a lot of parts off of this engine to put on that engine. So there really isn't much to disconnect. Exhaust, transmission, torque converter, get the radiator out of here, get the hood off of it. And then I want to clean it up a little bit. This is all sandblasted and powder coated. I know it doesn't look like it right now, but that's actually sandblasted and powder coated. All this was. So I'd like to clean it up while I got it out. So lots to do today. Lots to do today. I think I'm gonna start with the radiator. Should come out pretty easy, like 4 bolts on the side, I got one lower radiator hose, and way down there I got two transmission cooler lines. So 2 tranny lines, lower radiator hose, 4 bolts. Okay, radiator is out. Now what you want to do is try not to make a giant mess with the tranny lines and the lower radiator hose. You're gonna have to lay on the ground for a lot of this, so you try not to make a giant mess down there. Next up, I'm gonna try and get the upper bell housing bolts. If you can see, way down there's one down there, and there's one over here too somewhere. Those are kind of a pain to get on a Nova. It's definitely a tight squeeze back here, not like a Chevy. You got a lot more room, but these first and second gen Novas, there is just not a lot of room at the back there at the bell housing. So I try to get those out before I jack the car up. So I'm gonna get them upper bell housing bolts out. Okay, the upper bell housing bolts are done. Got her jacked up. Now it's time to go underneath. So what you got to do now is, okay, let me get my, whoa, all right. So next we need to get these torque converter bolts out. There's going to be 3 of them. Those guys. There's going to be 3 of them. So you need to be able to rotate the motor, which is kind of a pain with this engine because this 283 does not have the bolt in the front of the harmonic balancer. So I might just take that pulley off and put my tools on there to see if I can rotate this a little easier. But anyways, you get those 3 bolts out, and then you push this torque converter, push it back, and it should come back about a ½ inch or so. You'll know. So I'm laying on the ground right now, and I'm taking these torque converter bolts out. And let me tell you right now, my sunburn back is not happy. It is literally painful right now. This is gonna be a very long day. I can't believe this. I literally was outside weed whacking with no shirt on because it's been a very wet winter here in Arizona. Like, we've been getting a lot of rain and the weeds just grow out of control. And so, like, the weeds were like 4 feet tall, and like, so it took me like, I don't know, 6 hours out there weed whacking, and my back looks like a lobster, and I'm laying on the garage floor. Okay, torque converter bolts are out. This car has 3. All the older stuff pretty much has 3. Some of the newer stuff has 4. Whatever. You just take them all out, okay? And then when you do, you'll see like this. The torque converter should slide on back just like that. And you get a bunch of stuff falling in your face and your mouth. It's fine. Don't worry about that. But in this situation, we're leaving the transmission in the car. We're just going to pull the engine. So get all the torque converter bolts out, and you'll know because it's spinning free, and it slides back a little bit. And you're done. Next up, we're going to drop the exhaust. There's 3 bolts on that flange up there, those 3 nuts. See, now look at this. There's a Black Widow somewhere, okay? And I almost got killed by a black widow once. True story. My friends left me to die, and I was in a hospital for about a day because of a spider. So there's 3 bolts there. Take those nuts off. Why won't it zoom in? Those 3 up there, and those 3 over here. And we're gonna drop this dual exhaust. And why does it have dual exhaust? Because it's a race car. That's why. I mean, obviously, they all need dual exhaust. But yeah, so no, I got bit by a black widow when I was a teenager, and I didn't know, and I let it go for like 2 weeks until I had red lines going up my leg and a bloodborne infection, and I was literally dying, and my friends thought it was hilarious. Alright, so reaching up there to get that exhaust. Best way to do it, get you a long extension like this and a swivel, put a little bit of tape on it like that so it stays sort of rigidity. You keep it more rigid, and so you can reach up in there, you know, without it flopping straight down, you know what I mean? A little bit of electrical tape, you get that on there like that, and then you can kind of reach up in here like this, and then boom. Luckily they aren't very tight. See that? There you go. That's where you do it. Okay, exhaust bolts are out. They're not really gonna drop though because the hangers in the back are holding it up. But next, I'm gonna go ahead and get the bottom bell housing bolts. You can't really see it. There you go. It's right there. There's 2 on each side. So let me get those out. And then only thing left, I think, is gonna be, watch out for black widows, engine mount bolts. There's 1 on each side. And then I think this thing will lift right out of here. Alrighty, I got the rest of the bell housing bolts out of there. So basically nothing is attaching the transmission to the engine right now. I went ahead and took the exhaust manifolds out for 2 reasons. One, the pipes didn't want to drop, so they were still hanging on the 3 studs on each side. And it's a real tight fit here, and I don't want to scratch these up. So it's nice powder coated. This is going to clean up nice. I don't want to scratch them up. So I went ahead and took the exhaust manifolds off. Gives me a little more room. Gets it off the exhaust pipes. So basically all that's left now is the engine mount bolts, 1 on each side, and starter wires, and that's it. This thing will come out of here. Well, starter wires are disconnected, engine mount bolts are out there. I want to take this hood off, but I'm by myself, so first thing I'm going to do is take a screwdriver and you put a little scratch right here. You scratch a mark right there so it's easy to put the hood back where it was. But I'm gonna lay it down slow, take the bolts loose, and see if I can lift it off of here by myself without scratching the paint up, you know what I mean? Okay, hood's off. Almost blew out my sphincter muscle. I'm not as young as I once was, but all right. It's ready. It's time to get the cherry picker over here and throw a chain on that, and let's go ahead and yank it. All right, here we go. We're gonna start pulling on it. Now, don't forget, nothing's connected to the transmission. So once that engine comes off of the transmission, you got to put a jack underneath it. Otherwise, the tranny's gonna fall, especially in the front. Torque converter's gonna fall forward, all that. So support the transmission, and then once you get it up off of the ears, the two ears on the engine mount, that should be able to come forward. It'll come off the transmission and will come straight up. All right, start jacking. Whoa. Go up on the jack a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Ooh. Don't worry about that. Anything that's still connected is no longer connected. We got some coolant. Okay. Right up there. Ta-da! Just like that. There we go. One engine removed. Now we're going to come in here with some simple green or something, and we'll go ahead and clean all this up and wipe it down and make it look pretty. And then we're going to do everything we just did in reverse to put the new one in. Okay, stuck the old engine on the engine stand. Went ahead and hit this with some simple green. And look at that. Look, you could see yourself in it. Look at that. Hi, see me? All right, looks pretty good. Cleaned up nice. All that down there is clean. Drag the garden hose in here and just hose it out. Anyway, okay. New engine on the cherry picker. We're ready to drop it in. But while I got it out, I don't want to lay on this. It's kind of wet. The next door neighbor's kids just got a drum set. So that's fun. No, that's cool. I have a drum set. I sound about the same. So I can't talk anyways. So if you have a 62 to 65 first generation of, oh, by the way, when you hose this out, make sure you don't cover up the pipes. You know, you want some water and simple green to get down in there, because that's going to smell nice and smoke real nice when we go to start this thing back up. You know, we get some nice white cloud of smoke out there. It's going to be awesome. Okay, anyways, so if you got a 62 to 65 first gen Nova or 66, 67 second gen Nova, most of them came with a straight 6, a couple with a straight 4-cylinder. But if you want to put a V8 in them, the first thing you need are these frame mounts. There's 2 of them. They bolt to the frame. It's what the engine mount sits on. The rubber engine mount will sit on that. So these are the frame mounts. You'll notice them. They are V8 mounts. If they are shorter than the 6-cylinder mounts, they'll be a lot shorter. And you'll also notice that they angle backwards just a little bit. They kind of angle backwards just a little bit. See that? So they're also not the same length. The one on the passenger side is the short one. So don't get these in here wrong. When you get a set of them, make sure you bolt them in so they angle to the back, and the short guy is on the passenger side. So that's step 1 to converting this to a V8. Step 2 is your gas pedal linkage. A straight 6, it pushes, it doesn't pull. So the V8 ones point up, the 6-cylinder ones point down. So when you step on the gas on a 6-cylinder, it pushes, and on the V8 one, it pulls. So you need the V8 gas pedal linkage, just this rod part. The rest of it's the same. So you just need to change this rod, or you can cut and make your own. I've had to do that before too. Take a 6-cylinder one, cut it up, weld it, move it where you want it, and then make sure you get your height right on your gas pedal in there and weld it up. You can do that. So the frame mounts are going to be different. The gas pedal is going to be different. There's also a few other things you want to do. Unless you're running a points distributor, this car came with, well, they all did, 62 to 67. They all would have been points. Now, we're not running a points distributor. We're running an HEI distributor. So, get off of there. Give it to me. Give it. Okay. So, you're going to get rid of that cloth wire. When you're looking at your engine harness in here, you're going to see a cloth wire. That cloth wire is called a resistor wire. And for every inch, I forget what it is, for every inch of length, there's a certain amount of ohms of resistance. So a points distributor does not run on 12 volts. It runs on like 8 volts. So you have a cloth wire that'll come down to this plug, and that'll go to your coil. The other wire, the smaller one, goes to the starter, and there's a reason for that. When you're looking at your starter, the big post in the middle, that is your battery cable. The big fat red battery cable goes here. The one closest to the block, that's going to be your purple wire. That's going to be your signal from the ignition switch, or neutral safety switch. It goes from your ignition switch to the neutral safety switch to this point right here. That is going to give your signal to crank. That one on the inside there. Now, the one on the outside. If you had a points distributor still, you would definitely want to hook this up. Why? Because when the engine is cranking, the voltage is going to drop down quite a bit. So you want a path of 12 volts back up. It's going to backfeed to right here. And what that's going to do is, if this was a resistor wire, of course, at 12 volts, or when the engine's running 13 volts, it's going to drop way down. If you got a 2 feet long of resistor wire, and let's say during cranking, the starter's pulling a lot of the juice, so your resistor wire is going to have like 5 or 6 volts on it, and that's going to give you a real weak spark when you're trying to start the car. So there's a bypass. The smaller wire will go up and over and come out down here, and that is going to go to the opposite post on here. Like I said, that's going to be a bypass. So only when the solenoid is engaged, you're going to get 12 volts on this post, and that's going to backfeed up to the coil, and you're going to get you're going to bypass the resistor wire only while it's cranking. Does that make sense? And then when you let go of the key, the starter solenoid releases, this post goes dead, and then the engine will run off of the resistor wire. So you only have the resistor wire bypassed while it's cranking. The other thing I would recommend doing is get rid of the external regulator, the voltage regulator, the one that sits right here. Get rid of that, get rid of the external regulated alternator, and go with the one wire. The reason being is the original style external regulated alternator, it puts out like a whopping 30 amps, so it's no good. Get rid of that voltage regulator and then set this up for a one wire alternator. It's real easy to do. It's literally 12 volts constant, and then your signal wire to excite it, and then you can have your idiot light on the other post. So you can still have your check idiot light over there, your charging light on the dash, and you get a lot more power out of this than you would the stock 30 amps. Well, the floor's still wet, but screw it. I'm gonna get this thing in here. I'm gonna try and worm this guy back into here. Now the trick is to get these dowel pins, these big old honking dowel pins there's one on each side. They need to go into that hole right there, one on each side. So try to get those two dowel pins right into those two holes, and then set it down on these ears onto the frame mounts like that. Sounds simple, right? Right. Wow, that was surprisingly easy. I took the fan off and the alternator off so I didn't scratch anything, but we are on the ears on the engine mount down there. It's right on the ears. Now it went in to the transmission. I don't know if you can see, there's no gap, but here's what you do. Do not, under any circumstances, just start tightening up the transmission bell housing bolts. Get them all in, get them started. Start tightening them down evenly. If you don't, you can damage the pump and the torque converter. Also, when you put them in, especially if you removed the torque converter, make sure it's snapped all the way in. Like you'll feel it go onto the ears of the pump. When you push the torque converter in, spin it, and you'll feel it pop in. And you got to make sure that it's all the way back. If you aren't on those ears, the ears inside the pump, when you go to tighten this bell housing up, It'll get almost there. You'll get about a 1/4 inch or so, and then it'll get tight. And then as you're tightening the bell housing bolts, you'll hear a loud pop. And if you hear that pop, go ahead and stop now and go cry for a little while, because you've just ruined the pump of the torque converter. The torque converter wasn't in those ears. You'll bust the ears off of the pump inside there. So what I like to do is, as I'm tightening it down and I'm getting my bolts in there and I'm getting close, what I do is I'll spin this. Make sure it's spinning. This should be nice and there should be no resistance. This shouldn't be touching anything yet. So I should be able to tighten up all my bell housing bolts, and as I'm doing that, this should stay nice and smooth. They should not bind up at all. So double check that. I'm telling you, if you don't, you will be buying a new transmission. Okay, we're making some progress now. We got the engine mounts in. This one fought me too. I don't know why. I couldn't get that one to line up. That one's in. So engine mounts are in. Bell housing bolts are in. And then we're going to put the torque converter bolts in. Remember what I said? I put the bell housing bolts in, and as I tightened it up, I made sure and I kept spinning the torque converter. I kept spinning that to make sure it doesn't bind up. So I got all the bell housing tight, and then go ahead and put the 3 bolts back in the torque converter. And what you want to do there is you want to put a little bit of blue Loctite on those, and you don't tighten them until you get all 3 of them in. A lot of guys will put one in and tighten it and then spin it and then put one in and tighten it. By the time you get to the 3rd one, it doesn't line up. The hole won't line up. So get them all in. Put all 3 torque converter bolts in. Just get them on a few threads and then go to the next one. And then when you got all 3 in, then you can start tightening them. And put that blue Loctite on there so they don't come loose. Well, I thought I was going to have this running today, but guess what? I ran into problems. Some of them are not a big deal. Some of them are, I don't know, they're not big problems. They're minor inconvenience problems. First off, this exhaust manifold is for a V8 Nova. It's the correct air conditioning. Got the bracket on it for the air compressor on this side. The problem is my heater hoses are gonna hit, so I'm gonna need to get some longer heater hoses. That's the first problem. The second problem is the exhaust is still hanging because I don't have exhaust gaskets. I need to go get some new ones. The other problem is I went to put the radiator in, and because mine is a 65, I got this spacer here for, it's a correct V8 spacer. Well, the problem is I bought a larger radiator, and when I put that in here, the fan that came on this engine hits it. There's not enough clearance. So I figured, oh, okay, well, I'll just switch fans. So I went ahead and switched fans, and then I found another problem. The fan hits the pulley down there. That one's good. So I need to space this one out or space that one in, one of the two, in order to clear that radiator with this spacer. So that's going to be an issue. So I don't know. I need to run to the parts store. It's dinner time, and so I'm probably just going to push everything inside and close the door and run to the parts store in the morning, get some heater hose. Maybe they got a spacer, I don't know. If worst case scenario is I got to switch all the pulleys, no big deal. Some exhaust gaskets, but I'll be back at it in the morning. Okay, Day 2 of installation of the new engine. Okie is about 94% ready to run. There's a few small things I need to run to the store and get. I'm a little frustrated because I wanted to have it running last night and I just ran out of time. So a few small things. Heater hoses are too short. My battery cable, I want to get a different negative battery cable. It was going to the water pump. I don't like that. I want it to go all the way to the block. So I'll get a little bit longer battery cable. I think for now the best thing to do is to just take the pulleys off the old engine and put them on the new engine, and then that'll solve the fan clearance radiator problem. It's not a big deal at the moment. I'll show you more in a little bit. The reason why I want those pulleys is because I would like to put power steering and air conditioning and all that back on this car. That's the ultimate goal. So the single groove pulleys they're not right. So I need these pulleys and brackets to work in order to put all that stuff back on. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure that out later. Probably just get a different spacer for the fan, or take it to work and machine it or something. I don't know. So let's get to it. All right, original fan is in and it clears the radiator, no problems. So I think I can get the other one to work. I just gotta do something different with the spacer. So radiator hose is in, radiator's in, fans in, belts on. The front of the engine is good to go. Tranny cooler lines are hooked up down there. See them? Yep. Okay. So I started looking at the exhaust manifolds, and this one on the driver's side, I don't know what these came off of. I'm assuming a full-size car, Impala or something. You see how long that is, and it kind of kicks over and it has this weird like jog to it. See how it kind of jogs over like that? Well, these exhaust manifolds are a little bit different than the correct Nova ones I just went through hell to find and get. So guess what? My exhaust pipes don't line up. So, oh God, let me get down here. Okay, I had to cut it. You can see the shape is way off, and it's like touching everything. It's touching like shifter, linkage problems. So basically this whole shape is different because of that jog and that extra length. So this pipe is gonna have to be completely remade, but I'm not too upset about it. I'm gonna have to fix it anyways, because my exhaust, sorry if you get dizzy, these, especially on a station wagon, I like a car that has exhaust pipes that dump out behind the rear wheel. But this doesn't clear, because on a station wagon you've got the spare tire well, and so the pipe hits right there, so it doesn't clear the spring. So when I hit a big bump, the spring hits the pipe. So the tailpipes are all wrong. So between the problems in the front and now the problems in the back, I think I'm gonna have to just take this thing to the exhaust shop. But I mean, we can get it running today and fired up. It's just gonna sound completely terrible with one exhaust pipe connected and one exhaust pipe cut. So I will hear it run today, but it's gonna sound like, you know. Well, here it is. Installation complete. It's all done. I went to the store, got some heater hose, ran them out here, some longer ones. Got a longer negative cable. Also, I the extra to the chassis. So I ran this one down to the block. It used to go to the water pump. I don't like that, using the bolt on the water pump. The problem with that is you put silicone and stuff on the threads, it kind of defeats the purpose. It kind of insulates it. So I ran the bolt straight to the block, but I had to get a longer cable. And then when I first got this car running, it fried an ignition module on the HEI, and I'm thinking it was because of a noisy electrical system or something like that. So I'm wondering if I didn't have a good enough ground. So hopefully my longer ground to the block and an extra ground to the chassis, maybe that'll take care of it. I don't know. It hadn't done it again, so I think it might be okay. So here it is, a little 283 recessed oil filter back in the Nova, and really it's stock except for a little bit of a camshaft, and HEI distributor obviously is an upgrade. One wire alternator, that's an upgrade. But I guess I can fire it up for you and we can hear it run. I know it's going to fire right up because we ran it on the test stand, and so the timing and everything should be set just fine. So it should hit the key and go, but I don't know. It's going to sound absolutely terrible because of the exhaust pipe situation. I cannot get this side on. I cut the pipe just to try to bolt it up, but there's nothing. It's completely shaped different, so there's no way to fix it. So I don't know. It should fire right up. Let's give it a try. Let's hit the throttle. Give it one pump. How about that? One pump. Then we'll reach in here. I can't reach it. It's hard to film it and reach at the same time. Yeah, that sounds terrible. One side uncorked. Anyway, well, it's up and running at least. We just got to take it to the exhaust shop. They'll fix it up for me. Not that big a deal. So, what do we do next? The workbench is sort of cleaned off. I can sort of go through this now. I'll probably do something with this. I don't know. We'll either stick it on Craigslist. It's a running engine. There's nothing wrong with it. I could put the intake and stuff back on it, sell it as a running engine. Or who knows, maybe I'll try and find something to stick it in and flip it. I don't know. What next? That's the question. I need to do something with this. This is the engine out of the Chevelle. Yes, the Chevelle runs now. It's got my old engine in it from back in the day. It's still kicking. Old Faithful. This right here, oh, I don't want to talk about it. It's ugly. So I need to rebuild this or junk it and start over with something else. I don't know. We also have this. I need to do something with this. I got another 64 Chevelle I need to get started on. It's in the backyard. Also, this little blue Nova, I ran this up to the O'Reilly's, and it's only about 4 miles away, and I'm cruising along, having a good old time, and I looked down and I almost pooped myself because the temperature gauge was at 240 degrees, and on my way home I noticed it, and barely limped it home. Turns out the electric fans are not coming on, so I've got an ignition, or a relay situation, fan situation. Electric fan's not working. It also needs the interior put back in it, so there's some work that needs to be done on that car. So Chevelle needs the Chevelle doesn't need anything, but I want to put something in it a little faster than what it is now. The crotch rocket, it don't need nothing. The Harley, there's a radio problem. The radio cuts in and out. It's kind of annoying. There's like a power ground problem, something going on with the Harley. My wife's LS swapped 69 Nova. It's got a coolant leak somewhere in the front. Every time you park it, it just sits there and drips coolant. So there's a radiator leak somewhere in there and some bird poop on it. Don't worry about that. But so it needs work. So I don't know. There's plenty to do. What to do next, I don't know. Leave a comment. Say something. Give me a like. Let me know you're out there. Tell me what you think I should build next. And we'll get started on it. Who knows? Give me a comment, give me a like, give me a subscribe. Let me know you're out there. Until next time, see ya.